Hi everyone, I am back and I have an arm that moves, not to show off. Very excited about it. Finally starting to feel like myself again after a whole month, and I am here with a book haul. How these books get into my house, I just don't know, possibly because I buy them, but there is just no way to know for sure, is there? All right, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer if you're new to my channel. Hello. I will list all the books that I mention in the description box down below. Some of these books are books that I have purchased. Some of these books are books that I have requested for review. And let us dive in. Now, a couple of them, the first three are some of my most anticipated releases of the year. So this is a book that was supposed to come out in August, but it took quite a while to get to me because I think there were supply issues. So this is Year of the Tiger, An Activist's Life by Alice Wong. Now, Alice is the editor of Disability Visibility, and she runs the Disability Visibility Project. If you haven't read Disability Visibility, look at me inserting things again, very exciting, then I very much recommend it because it's a fantastic book. This is her memoir and I can't wait to read what she's got to say. It seems like it's including lots of different things in here as well. We have photographs. I think we've got a lot on disability activism. I think we've got conversations with other people in her life as well. It seems to be lots of different things all melded together, which is exciting. The next book that's one of my most anticipated releases came out this week. This is Layla and the Blue Fox by Kiran Millwood Hargrave, and it's illustrated by her husband Tom DeFreston. Kiran and Tom did Julia and the Shark, which came out around this time last year and absolutely emotionally devastated me. So I look forward to being emotionally destroyed again with this one. This is a series that's looking at complex emotions and is shown, that was quite vague of me, it's discussing complex emotions of children and really encouraging empathy in children's writing and it not being afraid to explore quite difficult topics, which I really appreciate. These are books that don't patronise children in the slightest, and they explore these complex emotions through children's relationships, both with their parents but also with animals, and I think that they're wonderful. So this one is about Layla and she's going on an adventure, and her adventure mirrors the adventure that this Arctic fox also goes on, and the two narratives run parallel to each other. And then third is a book that's coming out in January, and this is Kirsty Logan's new novel, which is called Now She Is Witch. I adore Kirsty and I am really excited to read this one. I'm always very jealous whenever we hang out and we talk about writing because we've known each other for a long time. She's always planning books so far in advance. She has a list of all the books that she's going to do next and she works through them methodically, and I just admire that so much. It's brilliant. So this one is one that she told me about, I think in 2016. It was a long time ago. I'll read you this. It says, Now She Is Witch begins with Lux burying her mother's bones among the nettles in her poison garden. Her mother has been killed and Lux is now a target too. When a mysterious hooded woman called Else appears and asks for Lux's help taking revenge on her enemies, Lux sees an opportunity to start again. Together, the two of them travel north through dark forests to the nearby city where the secrets of their pasts and the violence of their futures come to light. Now, a few years ago in 2019, Kirsty and I did a podcast together where she was talking about her writing, which you may want to listen to, so I'll link that in the description box down below. But yeah, this one is out in January, which is exciting. Then we have this, which is an anthology that I've read for the past couple of years. This is the BBC National Short Story Award Anthology. This series of anthologies is published in conjunction with Comma Press and obviously with the BBC as well, and also Cambridge University. And one of the reasons that I love this award is because it often introduces me to writers that I haven't heard of before, and then I can go off and read more work by them. So in 2020, I think it was, Jan Carson was one of the shortlisted writers, and I absolutely adored her short story and went on to read other work by her too. I had heard of her before, I just had never read her, and it just encouraged me to pick up some of her books. So this year there are authors on here that I'm aware of. So Kerry Andrew is the author of Swan Song, which I haven't read but have heard of. Jen Ashworth and Saba Sams are brilliant short story writers and I have loved their work. And then we've got Anna Bailey and Vanessa Unsteady, who I am not familiar with, so I'm looking forward to reading their stories too. It says, journeying across America to make a claim to an inheritance, a man must confront the shame and bigotry that has haunted his family for generations. A picture-perfect holiday threatens to unravel as two daughters come to terms with the uneasy dynamic of their new blended family. A woman exhausted by work and motherhood hires the services of a sinister firm that promises her a brand new life. I particularly like the sound of that last one. That sounds fantastic. Next on this pile, we have a book that I was aware of, and then I was waiting for reviews because I wasn't sure what kind of book it was going to be, but then I just caved and decided I'm going to read it and decide for myself. So this is my body is not a prayer request, Disability Justice in the Church by Amy Kenny. Now, as the title would suggest, this is a book that looks at how disability is talked about within Christian communities, and I have experience of that myself as someone who grew up going to church as a disabled kid. And yeah, there's a lot of praying for you to get better, a lot of sometimes unintentional ableism, sometimes intentional ableism, as there is in all sectors of society. So I'm interested in how this is going to be framed. I don't know if this is a book that's really going to focus on religion itself and then kind of how disability can intertwine with that, or if it's more a memoir talking about her experience of being disabled within the church. I'm kind of hoping that it's more the latter, but I will obviously find out when I read it. Then we have a short story collection that I purchased. In fact, I bought 2 books by this author. This is Yuko, whose work I have really loved, and I read her books Child of Fortune and Territories of Light over 2 consecutive Women in Translation month readathons. So I thought I would buy the 2 books of hers that I haven't yet got to. So this is The Shooting Gallery and Other Stories, and it's translated from the Japanese by Geraldine Harcourt. It says, the 8 powerful stories of The Shooting Gallery examine the lives of single women coping with motherhood, passion, jealousy, and the tug of war between responsibility and entrapment. An unwed mother arranges for her children to meet their father, who is a stranger to them. A woman confronts the other woman in her lover's life. A young single mother on an outing to the seaside comes face to face with how much she resents her own children. And another woman tries desperately to hold on to a private life despite her controlling male relatives. I just really love the way that she writes complex, morally grey female characters and how that intersects with society's expectation of motherhood. Her work is brilliant. So there's that one. And then in a similar vein, this is Woman Running in the Mountains, with an introduction by Lauren Gruff, and I'm assuming that it's also translated by Geraldine Harcourt. It is, because that's who translates all of her work. So this is about a woman who departs on foot for the hospital. Why did I say that weird? Departs on foot for the hospital to give birth to a baby boy. Her pregnancy is a result of a brief affair with a married man, and then she tries to find solace in the community of women within the hospital, but she can't really find what she's looking for. Then she tries to find it in a community of women at her son's nursery, and also can't find what she's looking for. She can't find anyone who feels the same way about parenthood as she does, and so she decides to journey up into the mountains and lose herself in nature in the hope she will find answers there. Next, I decided to buy 2 books by 2 authors whose work I have really enjoyed before. One of them is going to be included in that video I talked about in the last video of mine on here, saying that I'm going to do a vlog giving authors a second chance or another chance. And that author is Claudia Pinero, because I absolutely adored her novel Eleanor Knows. It's my favourite book of this year. But then I read another novel of hers called Thursday Night Widows, and I really didn't like it at all. I skimmed really the end of it, so it was basically a DNF. It just didn't appeal to me in the slightest. But I don't want to give up on her. I want to read more work by her and see, you know, whether I enjoy the majority of her work, and that dud book for me was mishap, or if Eleanor Knows was a fluke and is the only book of hers that I enjoy. We will find out. So the one that I've decided to buy is this one here, which is All Yours, and this is translated from Spanish by Miranda France. This is about a woman who is convinced that all wives will be cheated on at some point in their lives, and her suspicions are confirmed when she finds a handkerchief in her husband's briefcase with lipstick on it. So she starts to follow him and she finds out that he's having an affair. She witnesses him having an argument with this woman who dies, and she sees him disposing of her body, and then she decides to give him an alibi. I'm hoping that the blurb on the back isn't giving away a huge amount of the plot. I'm hoping that that happens really early on in the book, but we will see. But I just really like the sound of that book, because I don't think that the husband then repents, and I think she has to make a decision about what kind of revenge she wants to take, and I'm very much intrigued. And then the other book is by an author who's never let me down before, and that is Sarah Moss. This is her debut novel, Cold Earth, which I've never read before, and I couldn't resist purchasing it, especially because Granta have re-released all her backlist titles in these beautiful new editions. Hello. Reading the blurb of this book kind of amuses me because it sounds like lots of different elements from future books by her. So it's about a group of archaeologists who are studying Viking settlements off the coast of Greenland, and then a pandemic hits and all communication is lost and they are left to fend for themselves. Sounds great. Next, we have a proof copy. This is coming out in February. It is called Owlish, and it's a novel by Dorothy Tse, and it is translated from the Korean by Natasha Bruce. Now, this, I think, is inspired by Hoffman and Carter and various other fairy tales. It is about a professor called Q who really enjoys collecting antique dolls, and then his prized acquisition is a life-size antique doll called Alice, who he manages to bring to life. It says that he starts embarking on a love affair with Alice, oblivious to the sinister forces encroaching on his city and the protests spreading across the university that have left his classrooms all but empty. So we are bringing together the political, but as I said, I think it's inspired by Hoffman, Capalia, and also the, what is it called? Let me peer around. The Infernal Design Machines of Dr. Hoffman. So that's by Carter, but is inspired by Hoffman, and Capalia has inspired lots of books like Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. So maybe I will read Angela Carter's novel and this one side by side to see how much they kind of talk with each other, because I think that might be quite interesting. And then finally, I bought the latest collection of translated pamphlets published by Strangers Press. I've mentioned them before. I think that they're brilliant. They're an independent press based in Norwich, and they bring out series of pamphlets of work in translation. They have a series from Korea, one from Japan, and one from the Netherlands. And this one is their first collection of pamphlets from Sweden. Not from Sweden, from Switzerland. Why did I say Sweden? They both begin with SW. This is from Switzerland. So we have some work in here in French, some work in German, and then also Italian and Romansh. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pamphlets. Let me show them to you briefly. So this is one that's translated from Italian by Anna Ruchat. The translator, there are 2, Eleanor Chapman and Lucy Rand. This is called The New Job and the Owl. The covers of these are so beautiful. They're rhizo prints and they're stunning. It says, in The New Job, a naive and hopeful young girl crosses the border into German-speaking Switzerland for a job as an au pair for a family that may be more sinister than it first seems. And in The Owl, an elderly lady rummages through her memory to work out what made her daughter so painfully distant. Next, we have this one, which is translated from the French. This is Unsteady Earth by Marie-Jeanne Urech, and it's translated by Andrea Reece. This is about a man whose father has died, and he goes on a journey wandering around the local countryside and sees lots of bizarre things, such as dairy cows who have portals in their sides so that consumers can get to see the product, and pigs being farmed on 125 high-story buildings. Sounds very bizarre. This is In Foreign Lands, Trees Speak Arabic by Usama al-Shami, and it's translated by Rachel Farmer from the German. This one I think is non-fiction, and it's about the author leaving Iraq and settling as an asylum seeker in Switzerland, and the culture shock of that, and worrying about his family that he has left behind. This one is a dystopian. It's called Survivor by Julie Ganand, and it's translated from the French by Rosie Ayer, and it's about someone who's living in a remote cottage in the countryside, and it says, what if the world ended? How would you know? And she thinks that maybe the world has ended because her neighbours haven't returned from a trip that they've been on. The electricity cuts out, but she's not sure what she should do because she is so isolated. I'm getting Leave the World Behind vibes, and I'm rather excited by that premise. This one is a collection of short stories which is called Blackboard by Romana Gazzoni, and it's translated from the Romansh by Hannah Felsch. This one is also translated from the Romansh. This is As If Nothing Were by Ruth Plowder, and it's translated by Hannah Felsch again. And this is a non-fiction pamphlet about the author running an alpine farm and also about the death of her disabled son. Not too much is given away on the blurb of the next one, which is Provincen by Tobias Steiner, translated from the German by Joseph van der Voort. This is a collection of essays about the author's life. And then finally we have Elvezia's House by Alexandre Hmine, and this is translated from the Italian by Eleanor Palla. This is about a young boy from Morocco who's come to stay in this old woman's house in the Swiss mountains. She is a widow, and it's about their life together. So these pamphlets are a wonderful way to get acquainted with writers that you may not have heard about from various different parts of Switzerland. And as I said, I would very much recommend checking out the publisher in general because they publish fantastic things. So those are all the books that I wanted to talk to you about today. As I said, I will list them in the description box down below. I would love to know if you have read any of these, or if you have your eye on any of them, or if you would like to share what books you have been picking up recently from bookshops or libraries. Let me know in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video and you're new to my channel, I would love you to stick around and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content and would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that's very kind. Link to that is in the description box down below too. I hope you're all having a good Sunday, and I will speak to you very soon. Lots of love. Bye.